So today I'm going to show you how do we make an exterior siding paint with a matte finish. Basically there is two main steps for making a matte siding paint, which is making the matte clear base and turning to paint by adding the colorants. So there is also some sub steps and intermediate steps between these two main steps. The first step for making the matte clear base is making the resin clear. The second one is a dispersing part, which is for dispersing the pigments and fillers. The last part is mixing the part A and part B to make the matte clear base. I'm going to start by pouring the resin in the beaker. Then I put it under the plate and start mixing with a very low speed. What we are using here is an acrylic resin, which is self-cross-linking, and it has very good durability and chemical resistance. Basically, resin is a main part of the paint, and it works like a glue. It adheres to the substrate, and also it carries the other stuff, the other component of the paint. And the success of the formulation is very dependent on the quality of the resin. Next step is adding solvents. We have 4 different kind of solvents here. I'm going to measure them one by one on the scale. I make a blend of solvents, and then I add it slowly to the resin. Basically, the solvents are for ease in manufacturing, and also we can adjust dry time, open time, and they help a lot for the film formation. After adding the solvents, we give it some time, like 5 to 10 minutes, to make sure it's completely homogenized. And after we add the rheology additive. What this additive does is it increases the viscosity a little bit, and also it helps for sagging, and also it's like an anti-settling additive to prevent the settling the pigments and the heavier stuff in the formulation. Again, we need to give it another 10 to 15 minutes. This additive is going to make a three-dimensional matrix in the resin, and it's going to increase the viscosity, and after you're going to see how it gives body to the resin. The next one is defoamer. The reason that we are using defoamer is for eliminating the foams and bubbles in the paint during the manufacturing and after for the application. So then we continue by adding some surface additives. I start with a silicone additive, which helps to reduce the surface tension, and also it helps for leveling. The next one is also another surface additive for improve flow, slip, and also it helps to the paint to spread evenly on the substrate. The third surface additive is a strong substrate wetting additive. It helps to the paint to spread better and evenly on the substrate also, and also it's an anti-cathering additive, which means it's modified the surface problem like pinholes or cracks, or even if you put less thickness of the paint. Sometimes you see a small seeds on the substrate. It helps a lot to level out the fill. And the last one is the thickening agent. What this additive does is it helps to the first additive that we put as an anti-settling. They work together and they make even that matrix that I mentioned before, that three-dimensional matrix in the paint, even stronger. And it gives better viscosity and better flow to the paint. After adding the thickener, We give it like another 30 to 40 minutes to make sure it's completely reacted in the formula. But for the second part, which is the dispersing or grinding part, I'm gonna start by adding the acrylic copolymer resin to the beaker. This resin is using for grinding, but first we need to neutralize this resin with an amine, and after we can use it as a dispersing resin. So I'm gonna put it under the blade, and then I add water slowly to dilute it a little bit. The next part is preparing the amine to neutralize the dispersing resin. We need to dilute it a little bit with water again, like the resin. Yeah, I'll mix it a little bit. Then I'm gonna add it slowly to the dispersing resin. As you see, it looks milky right now, but after adding this amine, it's gonna be clear. So this color shows that this resin is completely solubilized and neutralized. And the next step is checking the pH of the resin. After checking the pH, we continue by adding the dispersing agent to the resin under the blade. The reason that we are using dispersing agent is, they help a lot for wetting and dispersing pigments in the resin. What they do, they give a positive charge to the pigment particles, and it helps to the pigment to repel each other and don't stick to each other. Because if it happens, they can coagulate in the system, and they can settle faster. And if it happens, it decreases the shelf life of the paint. We have different kinds of dispersing agent with different mechanism. One of them is electrostatic stabilization, and the other one is steric stabilization. What happens in electrostatic stabilization is it gives positive charge to the particles and help them to repel each other. In the steric stabilization, the additive has one tail and one head. The head sticks to the particles, to the pigment particles, and the tails repel each other, and in this way they can suspend the pigment in the resin. The next part is adding the defoamers. Again, we have two kinds of defoamer for micro and macro bubbles. Like the first part, we give it some time to homogenize in the system. After, we need to add some solvent. In the first part, I showed you how we use solvents and coalescing agent to, as I explained, for ease in application or ease in manufacturing, and also to adjust the viscosity and dry time. But in this process, in the dispersing process, we use solvents like a wetting agent, and they help a lot for the dispersing pigment, and they're gonna help for the wetting the surface of the pigments. Then we add the thickener or rheology modifier to give some body and increase the viscosity. What is important in the dispersing process is to have some fraction. So if the liquid has a very low viscosity, or if it's very liquidy, it's not going to happen. We can't break down the pigments. So we need to increase the viscosity and give it some body to have better dispersing. So the next step is adding the filler. It's the aluminum silicate filler, which helps for control the gloss. Also, it has very good chemical resistance, and because of the special shape of the particles, which is spherical, it gives a very uniform finish to the paint. So after mixing for 15 to 20 minutes, we check the grind on the grind gauge. This test helps us to check the particle size. At the end, we add some antimicrobial additive. It stops growing fungus and mold in the can. To stop the third step of the making matte clear base, we need to premix the rheology modifier with the water and after add it to the part A. First we put water in the beaker and after we add the rheology modifier, which is a powder. We give it like 20 to 30 minutes to dissolve completely in the water. So when our rheology modifier is fully dissolved, we can add it to the part A. So then we continue by adding the part B, which is our dispersing part, to part A. So the next step is adding an extender. It helps to control the glass and also improves the flexibility and tensile strength. The next additive is UV absorber or light stabilizer. This additive helps resin to remove the free radicals and helps it to protect it against the UV. The next is adhesion promoter and a cross-linker additive. It helps to resin to adhere to the substrate better and stronger. After we add the matting bags to improve the surface protection. The next additive is a biocide. We use it to protect the paint film against fungus and molds. And at the end, we put the thickener to increase the viscosity and also adjust the viscosity. We always check the temperature during the process to make sure the resin doesn't get too hot. After mixing for about 30 minutes, the clear base is ready, and I'm gonna remove it and go for the quality control tests. The first test that we are doing is the viscosity. We always adjust the temperature at 21 degrees, which is the standard room temperature, and after we check the viscosity with the viscometer. The number that machine shows here is the viscosity of the clear base based on the Krebs unit, which is a KU. So the second test is density at the same temperature, 21 degrees, and we do it with the density cup. The next test is controlling the pH. The last test of the matte clear base is controlling the glass. We make a throwdown on a piece of glass, and after we leave it in the oven to dry, and then we check the glass. So when our panel is fully dried, we take it out from the oven and check the glass with glass meter. So when we finish the testing of a matte clear base, the clear is ready for making paint. For making the colorant, we start by pouring water in the beaker. After we put it under the blade, and then while it's mixing, we add some solvent, glycols, to improve the wetting. The next one is a dispersing agent. Whenever we have a pigment or powder in the system, we need to use a dispersing agent. Since dispersing agents make bubble and foam in the system, we need to add some defoamer to kill the bubble. So the next one is a thickener or rheology additive, which is a powder, and we add it to the water. So we need to give it 20 to 30 minutes to make sure it dissolves properly in the system. When the thickener is fully dissolved, after 30 minutes, we can add the pigment to the system. After adding the pigments, we keep mixing it for another 15 to 20 minutes with high speed. And after we check the grind and grind gauge. And at the end, we put some biocide to prevent growing mold and fungus. So for making paint, we add colorants while we are mixing the clear base. After adding the colorant and mixing it, we take a sample of paint to spray a panel and check the color. After spraying the panel, we put it in the oven to make it dry faster. So when the panel is fully dried, we can take it out and check the color. So for checking the color, we use a spectrophotometer. We scan our standard panel. When we do scan the color, it converts the color to numbers and we can see on the screen. And the second time, when we scan the sample, it shows the difference between two colors with the factor which is delta E star. And the goal is to get this number as low as possible. Basically, under 0.8 is impossible for the human eyes to see the difference. For testing the hiding power, we apply the paint next to the standard batch on this opacity display chart with a 6 mil drawdown bar, and after drying, we will compare it visually. After checking the color and making sure that the color is perfectly matched, we can take out the container and check the viscosity and density. For checking the viscosity, we need to adjust the temperature at 21 degrees. So now I'm checking the density. We use a density cup at 21 degrees. We put the lid back. Excess paint comes off from the hole. Write the number. So, and at the end, we check the pH again to make sure it's still in the range. To control the gloss, we make a drawdown on a glass panel, and after we put it in the oven. After 1 hour, when the panel is fully dried, we can take it out and check the gloss. So after finishing the manufacturing process and finishing the whole QC test, we do some physical and mechanical tests on the dried film on our metal panel. First, we check the dry film thickness. The next one is the adhesion test with the cross cut. After removing the tape, we have to compare the panel with the standard chart and to compare and see how many cells are gone, and then we can give rating to the panel. After we check the paint hardness with the pencil hardness test, which has this scale based on the hardness of the graphite, and we choose the pencil one by one to see which one scratched the surface of the paint.